Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Monday Night Live. It is the 15th of February. In Minnesota, it's still absolutely horrible outside. We are probably 25, 30 below. Josie and I were out shooting some photos tonight as the sun went down with some boiling water that literally freezes and evaporates the moment that you spray it. So I want to give it a minute, as we always do, to kind of get things going here and see where we stand. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I hope you guys had a wonderful weekend, and I appreciate the support. I'm going to turn the volume down here and get everything situated so I can see comments. I hear that people down in Texas are really having a rough time of it right now. And unfortunately, sounds like you guys are into sub-zero weather as well. I wanted to, this is Monday Night Live. For those of you that may follow me and may not know, every Monday night I do this. And I talk about all things real estate for 15, 20 minutes. And then I take questions. Dean, good evening. How are you, sir? I'm sure I'll see you later tonight at the auction. Dean is a very successful real estate agent as well. And I want to say, is it Ohio, Dean? I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly where you are. But I want to talk about contingencies tonight. And I want to talk about contingencies for buyers as well as sellers. So let's just get rolling on this. There are three main contingencies that you as a buyer can have. Good evening, Chris. How are you? Thank you guys for tuning in. There's the inspection contingency, where you have your home inspection. Oh, Dean's in New Hampshire. Hi, Victor. Good evening. Sorry, guys. I want to make sure I say hi to everybody that's tuning in. The second one is an appraisal/finance contingency. And then if you're purchasing a condo or a townhome, the third one would be a contingency for your right to inspect all of the association documents. Those are basically your three ways to get out of a purchase agreement on the buy side. You should never give up any of those. Most common one to give up as of late, because of the type of market we're in, is an inspection. And I spoke about that last week and a little bit the week before, that it's too important for you to give up. And you're better off walking away from a purchase agreement and multiple offers if someone's willing to purchase the property without an inspection. And I don't care if the house is 100 years old or the house is brand new. All of them can have some problems, and I just think that you're better off having that inspection so you make sure you know that what you're purchasing is what you believe you're purchasing. And a contingency, essentially what that is it's a thing or several things that have to happen during a certain amount of time that you have to go through between the buyers and the sellers. So a contingency is, I want to buy your house, but it's contingent upon the inspection that it actually looks good and things are as we think they are. I want to buy your house, but it's contingent upon the appraisal. The home has to appraise at the purchase price that we've come to agree to. I want to purchase your townhome or condo, contingent upon reviewing all the articles of incorporation, rules and regulations, and all of the things that you need to know about that association, so that when you're making those monthly association payments, you know where the money's going and what you're doing. Hi, Dawn. It's good to see you. It was nice to see you on Saturday night as well. We were doing a Flip thing. For those of you, Flip is a rock band here from Minneapolis, and they had a little get-together called the Shit Show. And fans could pay $100, and it was limited to only 10 fans, and they played, 2 hours, and then they signed autographs and took pictures. And Dawn is married to Johnny Mack, and Johnny is kind of the gatekeeper for Flip. He is the guy who takes care of everything and keeps things on track. So those are the three contingencies for the most part. And when you're buying a house, I think it's also important to mention what you need to have. So when you're purchasing a home, depending on, it doesn't matter whether you're FHA or you're VA or you're conventional, you're going to have an earnest money check. The earnest money that you write out when you purchase a home is something of value with your purchase agreement saying, hey, I have vested interest in this property. Here's some money down. This isn't free money to you as a seller. This is money that goes into an escrow account. And on the day of closing, let's say it's $5,000. That $5,000 is a credit towards the buyer as far as the amount of money they have to bring to closing, whether it includes just your down payment or includes seller paid closing, whatever it might be. And that's number one. Now, as far as the amount of money, it depends, because if you're looking at a $200,000 home, typically it's 1%. So you would maybe offer $2,000 in earnest money. If it's a $500,000 home, $500,000, and so on. When you write this purchase agreement and you have an accepted offer and you hand over this earnest money, it goes into the broker trust account, like I said, as a credit for closing. But let's say you have your home inspection contingency and you find something about the house that you don't like. You can cancel that purchase agreement and you can get your earnest money back. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've never lost anyone's earnest money. So it's very important to understand that it is something of value, but at the same time, you are not going to lose it as long as you stay inside those contingencies. The second thing you're going to need is money for a home inspection. Depending on where you are in the country, it varies, but right now I'd say it's probably about $400 to $500 to have a home inspection on your house. Now, this does not include radon. So if you're in an area like we are in Minneapolis or Minnesota, where we can have some high levels of radon, typically it'll cost you an extra $150 or so to have a radon test. If the radon is higher than 4.0, which is the EPA standard, then you're looking at $1,500 or so on average for the seller to put in a radon mitigation system, which is something you as the buyer can ask them to do from your inspection. So you'll have to talk to your realtor and you'll have to talk to the inspector about whether you should do one of those tests or not. After that, the last two pieces of money that you will need other than your down payment at closing and your closing costs is you will need to sometimes, depending on the lender, you'll have to pay for your appraisal, which is about $550. But typically the appraisal can be rolled into your closing costs as part of your final numbers. Sometimes lenders require it up front. So that's about $500. So you're looking at your earnest money, which is $2,000 to $5,000 or whatever. You have your home inspection that's going to run you $400 to $500 plus maybe $150 if you're doing a radon, or if there's extra things you need to do, like say scope the sewer line from the house to the street. That'll be an additional cost. Then you need the appraisal, which is about $550. And if you're not purchasing a townhome or condo and you're purchasing a single family home, you'll need to purchase 1 year worth of homeowner's insurance. What that 1 year of homeowner's insurance does is it pays for the next year. Because when you make your first payment after you move in, 1/12 of that goes to homeowner's insurance for the year, into principal and interest, and into your taxes. So your lender will establish escrow accounts, which is also part of your closing costs. They may ask for a few extra months of money in your closing costs, so they establish this account. Then every 6 months, they'll pay your property tax for you, and they'll pay your home insurance. So that first year is to cover you for literally the first year you live in the home. Other than that, you shouldn't have any other out-of-pocket expenses besides your down payment and how you negotiate your closing costs. But I say this to everybody, and I think it's really important to know that when you move into a house, I don't care if it's a townhouse or it is a single family home, I don't care if it's old or if it's new, I think it's really important that you understand that you're probably going to have about $1,000 worth of repairs in your first year, because you never know what's going to happen. And it's nothing that the sellers are necessarily hiding. Lots of times it's something as simple as a drain starts to leak, or you have a leak in your refrigerator, freezer, your ice cube line, your water line, things that the sellers could never know could happen. But just always budget for about $1,000. I think it's really important to just know there are going to be things that you're going to have to fix. And it always seems like when one thing is broken, it leads to something different. So let's say all of a sudden the sink underneath the bathroom in the vanity starts leaking. Well, there's a pretty good chance if it wasn't fixed by a plumber that not only do you have to fix that particular leak, there might be something else going along with it that created the leak in the first place, and you find yourself replacing a faucet. It's nothing major, and it's not that you couldn't hire it out. Just budget about $1,000 in your first year. And that's literally how simple it is to purchase a house as far as the money is concerned. There shouldn't be any hidden fees. There shouldn't be no last minute changes. And that's part of what the loan officer does. When I had Chris on a couple of weeks ago talking about how he'll get you down to the numbers so you'll know exactly where you stand and how much your monthly payment is going to be, so there's no surprises. When I bought one of my first homes, this is well before I was a real estate agent, the agent and the loan officer didn't do a very good job. And we ended up having to pay, I want to say about $250 more a month, which, you know, maybe now is not as much money, but back in 1990 or something, $200 or $250 a month was a huge amount of money for me. And I learned a really big lesson that day. And I promised myself once I went into real estate that there's no way I would ever allow that to happen to somebody else. So you're going to know your numbers at the end of the day before you purchase and before you close, so you can go into closing with confidence knowing that nothing's going to change. I think that even though I go over this stuff a lot, it's important to continue to talk about it because there's a lot of people who maybe have never heard this before. And I think that it's a good reminder for those of you that are thinking about getting into the market. From the sales side, if you're thinking about listing your home, these contingencies are equally important to you as well. You want a home buyer to have an inspection on your home. And unfortunately, in this market that we're in with such low inventory, there are some agents who are convincing their buyers to not have a home inspection. We've talked about that before. I'm wholeheartedly against that. I think that you are giving up too big of a right and a protection when you don't do a home inspection. So from a seller standpoint, you want the buyer to have a home inspection because 99% of them probably go through, but you want them to have that feeling of comfort that when they purchase the home from you, they know what they're buying. On top of that, it also protects you from a legal standpoint because they can't come back later and say, well, gal, you didn't make any effort to disclose this, when in reality, lots of times you don't know yourself. I'm sure there are issues with my house right now that if I looked at everything really closely, I could find all kinds of small things that are wrong with the house that you just live with. So it protects you as a seller, it protects you as a buyer. It's just a great way to go. So contingencies aren't something that you should be scared about. Contingencies are something that works to the favor of both the seller and the buyer, and it protects both parties to make sure that the transfer goes easily. Thank you guys so much for coming. Chris is here, Victor, Dean, Dawn, Candy, Paul. Paul said, does the value of a property go up with laminate flooring in bathrooms or tile? That's a great question, Paul. It depends on where you are. Because I can tell you right now that there are homes that are brand new construction in the $1 million+ range that are putting in linoleum. And there are a lot of people who are moving away from wood because they think the linoleum wears considerably better than hardwood because they may have pets or they have young kids and there's a lot of traffic. But with regards to the bathroom, I guess I would say to you, tile is always going to be my first choice because it's so durable. But if you're going to do some type of a laminate, make sure you know what kind of laminate that you have, because when it's going around the toilet, you've got to be very careful that it's not something that's going to lift and separate. Years ago, all the rage was Pergo. Now, Pergo is an actual type. It's more of a brand of flooring than it is a type. But when you use the term Pergo, A lot of people understand what that is. And for those of you that don't know, pergo is nothing more than basically pressed cardboard that locks into place as a flooring, and it has a very thin plastic layer over the top of it. So if you have a situation where you leave water overnight, like I don't know, an ice cube falls out of the ice cube tray, you don't pick it up. The next morning, when that water melts and goes down into the cracks, you can ruin your floor. So I would say make sure that if you're going to think about doing linoleum rather than tile, you know what kind of linoleum that you're putting in. Hopefully that answers your question. Let me see. Hi, cousin. How are you? I see you're live on Facebook. Was wondering if you knew this. Because of real estate building inspection, my main job. Let me see. I'm sorry. I got first-time homebuyer programs. I'm sorry, I got it confused. Jennifer's on too. Hi, Jennifer. First-time homebuyer programs. Yes, there are some that you can work your way through if you want to purchase a house. What you would want to do is get hooked up with a lender. If you need information, just let me know, cousin, and I will give you Chris's name and phone number, and he can walk through that stuff with you. If you take some classes, lots of times they will give you, there's a bond program or there's some type of down payment assistance program, but you got to know the ins and outs of it, and you have to qualify. And I couldn't tell you the details as far as how much money you could make per year, but just Facebook message me and I'll be happy to help. Jennifer, hi, how are you? I'm very familiar with everything you're saying. I'm aware of all of this because real estate building inspection is my main job. Okay, well, there you go. Thanks, Jennifer. I appreciate it. Hi, Kelly, how are you? Paul said he's in Napa, California. So yeah, Paul, just take a look, like I said, and make sure that if you're going to do vinyl, that it's something that if the toilet were to leak, you're not going to end up ripping up that floor and having to redo everything. That would be the best advice I can give you. As far as, adding value to your home, you're always going to get the most amount of money out of bathrooms and kitchen remodels more than anything else, because I think those are the two areas that people place a high importance on. But if you look at what's going on now, Cheryl pointed this out to me the other day, that these dark colors are coming back in, which is fine. So if they're moving away from the light colors and the grays and all of that, you got to be really careful that you don't trap yourself into doing something that's going to look dated. So one of the ways you can do that is incorporate some darker color or some more bold colors with something that's a little bit more traditional. If you look at houses built in the 20s and the 30s, a lot of them still have white woodwork, and it was originally like that. That stood the test of time in the same manner in which real stone is always going to stand the test of time. So sometimes travertine is going to be in or out from what's going on right now, but overall it's always going to look good, just like slate and other things. So just be careful also when you're doing any remodeling on your home that you take a good look at what is the most safe colors to do, what is the easiest way to get the most out of whatever you do from a remodel standpoint. Hi, Jackie. Does a pool add value? Oh, geez, Jackie, that's a tough one. The problem with pools is 50% of the people in Minnesota, now we're talking Minnesota here, I'm not talking California, 50% of the people love them. And there are some that specifically look for houses that have pools. But there are 50% that would fill them in and think that they're problematic. So it does limit your resale value to a certain time of the year and to a certain buyer. I think the key is that if you're going to put a pool in, you be very mindful of the cost and try to stay within budget and don't allow yourself to overspend on the installation, not only of the pool, but also in the installation of all the concrete that goes around it. So if you are in an area that you feel that you could do a pool, like for your daughter who just built, and it would make sense from a resale perspective because of the type of neighborhood and the space, then we're in good shape. If not, then I would rethink it. And this is Sasha, who decided to sneak into the bar while I am doing this. So Jackie also said, let me see, the nephew is looking for a house that specifically has a swimming pool, and we're trying to change his mind. What are your thoughts? Well, if the pool already exists, then you're in great shape because you're not the one paying for it. What happened in 2008 is when the market crashed, and all of a sudden, we had a situation where houses were losing value. The appraisers were told by the banks in lots of cases that you cannot give any value to exterior buildings, you cannot give any value to pools, things like that. So a lot of that stuff lost value. And it's, if you spend $50,000 to put a pool in, you're never going to get the 50 grand out completely. But if you purchase a home that already has a pool in it, then you didn't take the hit of putting it in the first place, and the value of the house is not being pushed up higher just because of the pool. If you have any other questions, though, just have your nephew call me, or you call me, Jackie. You know how to find me, and I'll be more than happy to answer that question. Paul was wondering, what about a shower? My place is 83 build, tile in the shower was leaking, so I'm tearing it out, thinking solid insert, so I don't have the leakage problem again. What about stairs, laminate, or carpet? Stairs, it depends on what you want, because if you put hardwood in, there's some people that don't like hardwood on the stairs because it gets really slippery. So you may want to do hardwood and a combination of like a runner. If you're going to do stairs and you're going to do carpet, then do Berber, because it lasts a lot longer and looks a lot nicer. As far as a solid insert, there's nothing wrong with that. It all depends on what you are looking at for a value. So like if I'm looking at a house in Minnesota and it's a $300,000 house, buyers that are coming through that house aren't necessarily expecting a tile shower, so an insert is fine. If I'm showing a $600,000 house, then a lot of the buyers that are coming and looking at that house are looking and expecting to see a full shower with tile in it. So you can do the whole sections of tile, you can do the inserts. It all depends on what your patience level is and what the value is as far as how much is it going to cost you to do. If you can do the work yourself, I'm going to say this to everybody, I don't care what this is, whatever project, if you can do it yourself, then I say go as far as you can go with it and do the best you can do and buy the highest quality you can, because you'll never regret it. It's the labor cost that gets really expensive. And now with contractors being in such high demand and being so short in availability, even the handymen are starting to get $75 to $100 an hour. So you have to offset the cost of doing what you're going to do with what you think you're going to get back out of it. And I'll give you a great example. I have a friend. Oh, hi, Sean. Yeah, say hi to Sean. Tell him I emailed or texted him. I've got a question. So have him look at his phone. When it comes to remodeling, I'll use this example. I have a really good friend. His name is Rick. Rick has been a mason for 30 or 40 years. He's retired now. And he said to me, he built this beautiful deck. He's in a really nice area of town, but it's a home that's a starter home. So I don't know, it's probably in the threes. And he said, I want to build an outdoor kitchen. What do you think about that? I'm like, well, that would be awesome, but you got to control your cost. So knowing Rick knows masonry and he knows carpentry, he can probably build an amazing outdoor kitchen for a couple of $1,000s. Then when he goes to sell, he'll easily get that couple of grand back. Even if it's $4,000, he'll get it back. But if he hires a contractor to do the very same thing that he's going to do, that could cost him $20,000. Then at that point, he's going to lose that money, because if you look at all the other homes in the neighborhood, he's probably the only one with an outdoor kitchen. So it really comes down to the amount of money you want to spend, the work you can do yourself, and where you think it's going to land. So one of the things that I always offer as a service for free with past clients and friends and family, anyone in the metro area, if you ever have a question about should I do this or should I not, call me. I can look at the numbers and give you an idea. Another point I'd like to make is I had a house for sale last year in Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, really nice area. It was a 1.5-story home. It had 3 bedrooms and 1 bath. Some of the 1.5-story homes had 3 bedrooms, 2 on the main, 1 bedroom upstairs, and a second bath upstairs, even if it was a 3/4 like a shower. And I wasn't sure how that was going to affect us in the market that we were in. So I started to do some digging, looked at solds. And what I came to realize is that the houses that had that second bathroom were only selling for about $5,000 more in that neighborhood than the homes that only had one bathroom. But because it was a story and a half, and because the way the home was originally built, to get all of the plumbing and all of the stuff you would need to that space upstairs to put that bathroom in, it would have cost my seller about $15,000. So I said, at that point, you're better off charging $5,000 less for your home, keeping the extra 10 grand in your pocket, and using that to remodel or update something in the new home you're moving to, because it just didn't make sense at that point if the ones with the second bathroom are only selling for $5,000 more. So that's kind of the stuff you have to consider when you're thinking about doing these upgrades. But in general, like I was saying earlier, if you spend money on your bathrooms and your kitchen, you will always get that money back. Tom said, he's a CNA home care aide, and my wife is a hospice nurse. What is the average annual income for RNs in my area? Oh, gee, Tom, I'm sorry. I have no idea. I don't know what to tell you. I guess I would Google and check. I'm not sure about that career. Yindra, hi, how are you? I haven't seen you in forever. Daryl, hi. Bill, Joe, Chuck, thanks, guys, so much for tuning in. I appreciate you taking time. I'm here every Monday night. Also, too, I do referrals. So if you guys live out of state and you're thinking about buying or selling a home and you don't have a real estate agent, let me know. And I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you. It's a free service, and I'll help find someone in your area. I don't care if you're in North Carolina or you're in Florida or you're in California. If you need help, reach out. For those of you that are local, I'm always appreciative of any referrals you give me. I'm always happy to answer questions at no obligation. Just let me know what I can do to help you guys. That's pretty much, I think, all I really wanted to say tonight. Thank you for tuning in. And I will be back here next Monday night for another riveting live real estate show. So you guys have a wonderful week. Be good to each other. Stay warm if you're in a cold. Well, actually, even in Dallas, you're cold right now. Be good to each other. Have a great week, and I will see you next week.